Today's Tips du Jour mailbag question comes to us from Korea. Robert, what is the difference between a classical and a flamenco guitar? Haechul Cho in Korea. Haechul, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. I hope I got it right. But that's a very good question, and a lot of people have the same question. Now, I have a friend, a Spanish luthier named Paco Chorobo, who just happens to be here in my shop, and he is not only a flamenco builder, but he also plays, he composes, he's even a part-time bullfighter. I'm going to invite him on camera here. I'm going to let him answer your question for you. So hey Chu, this is my good friend from Ubida, Spain, Paco Chorobo, part-time bullfighter, luthier, guitar builder, extraordinaire, player, you name it, he does it, true Renaissance man. Paco, what is the difference between a flamenco and a classical guitar?
Well, the difference between a flamenco and a classical guitar, it's a very complex topic. It might seem simple, but it's not. If we think about the origin of the flamenco guitar, it was basically a cheap classical guitar for people who couldn't afford a imported rosewood, the expensive wood.
Right.
So the luthier, they were making a cheap guitar with local woods like cypress and nogal, the local woods from Spain. Nowadays, these woods are more expensive, so the evolution of the flamenco guitar in relation with the classical is being something like this.
Okay.
In some times, it's been very, very close, almost the same. Sometimes it has evolved, it has gone away from the classical guitar with a lot of differences. The main differences are the ergonomics of the guitar, so the angle in between the top and the neck, the height of the bridge, and the building method. So the key in a flamenco guitar is the quick attack, the short sustain, that personality in the sound.
Okay.
That has been more or less a constant through the history. The flamenco guitar has evolved a lot, but basically these differences in between the building, the height of the bridge, the low action, to make the guitar more dry, more percussive, because of the player, who is basically the biggest difference in between a classical and flamenco guitar is the player. The players, they have led the evolution of the guitar. So nowadays, classical and flamenco, they are becoming really, really close. Flamenco players, the technique is evolving a lot. It's not like 50 years ago, it's way, way more different. So now the flamenco guitar is evolving towards a more classical sound with more sustain, more rich sound.
And I think you told me once that was because of the size of the auditorium where the performers perform, is that correct?
So
the size of the auditorium, they need to fill the auditorium, so they're looking for more sustain.
Yes, the public, they were playing for in between the classical and the flamenco, it was completely different. The audience, it was a completely different place, a completely different audience. So it has a strong influence on the instrument. So flamenco players, they were playing on a tablao, which is like a very small auditorium, and people were hand clapping, and women were dancing. So it was a lot of noise. So you don't need a lot of harmonics. All you want is something like a drum, very percussive. So these circumstances, they forced the guitar to go a little bit away from the classical guitar, and at the same time they were cheaper. So by using these cheap materials, nowadays
now expensive, right?
Expensive, they get something that was perfect for playing flamenco.
Right.
So all you need to play flamenco, which is a very racial, very quick, and a lot of speed, a lot of it's very hard to define flamenco in this short video. But everything that you need, you have in this cheap wood at that time. Cypress, it's very light, it's very dry, a quick attack, it's like a drum. So it was perfect. It's cheap, we can afford it, and it's perfect to play what we do, which is flamenco. So that was the evolution of the flamenco guitar. Nowadays it's coming again from Paco de Lucia. People is playing with more rosewood guitars, more and more we are going towards a more delicate, a more elaborate, a more complex flamenco guitar.
Okay. Anything else you want to add? You want to play an example maybe? No?
Well, I can, but do we have a flamenco guitar here?
So when I was in Spain a few years ago, I went over and Paco and I filmed an online flamenco guitar building course. Very good, by the way, available via my website if you want to learn how to build a true flamenco guitar. But we traveled around all of southern Spain. We interviewed luthiers and dancers and percussionists and singers, and it was a very interesting experience. One of the main things I took away from that is that it's the player. Paco's already mentioned that. Another story that we learned was in Cordoba, and it was about the Pedra Gorda.
Yes.
So can you tell that story?
Yes, it's just another example of the culture around the flamenco guitar and about the people playing guitar. So imagine a player at that time. They were not a very educated people. So for a flamenco player, if they can get like a cigarette or a little coin, which in Spain at the time it was called Perla Gorda, which means it translates like to fat and dog.
Okay.
So if they can get this little coin in between the strings, they will say, okay, this is a flamenco guitar.
Right.
Because they had no education about guitars,
Right.
so the only way for them to say, okay, this is a flamenco guitar is the action is like one coin and the action at the bridge is
Right.
One cigarette. Nowadays it's changing completely.
Right.
So now flamenco players, they are playing with higher actions, looking for a more complex sound. But at that time, it gives you an idea of the culture of everything surrounding the flamenco guitar, the people that were using that, the level of education of, it's just an example, and there are thousands like this.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Paco, for being here.
My pleasure.
And thank you for explaining to our friend in Korea the difference between a classical and a flamenco guitar. Happy building.
Happy building.